Oh, here's MSNBC's, I guess, discussion with a print reporter regarding Black Lives Matter protesters. Now, just so that you know, and I followed the RNC convention pretty much from start to finish, morning to night. You know, I was flipping back and forth. One thing that I will note is the city of Cleveland was not joking. Okay, they did allow protesters, but it was extremely limited, and it was pushed far back away from the arena where the actual convention was held. So, I mean, MSNBC did periodically stand in front of the arena and show where the protesters were, and you could barely see them, let alone hear them. Now, sometimes the host of various shows would do broadcasts where they were a lot closer to the protesters. They weren't actually on site of the arena. In some cases, they were in outside and high up, but when they were close, you could hear protesters going. But for the most part, you didn't really see any protesters in Cleveland, and that's exactly how Cleveland wanted it. Philadelphia is going to be a different story.
We're in Philadelphia, and this town is bracing for protests at the Democratic National Convention. The city is expecting 10,000 demonstrators this week. And joining me now, Van Newkirk. He's with The Atlantic. Van, just 2 weeks ago, you wrote about the Black Lives Matter presence and what it would be at both conventions. I don't feel like it had a big impact last week at the RNC.
Well, it didn't. I think there's two things happening there. One is it's already pretty unsafe at Donald Trump rallies and things like that for black protesters. We seem to be beaten up. And I think at an open carry convention, who knows what will happen. And also, I think there's a sense of diminishing returns.
A sense of diminishing returns? It's too risky to be there, so don't show up?
Well, I think at least...
Okay, let me just clear that up. Yeah, they did show up, but you never saw them because the cameras just weren't out really at the protest locations for whatever reason. That they really didn't put a lot of emphasis on the protesters because they were so far away. And also, there really weren't a lot of protesters in Cleveland. Now, they did march, and they were given a marching route, and you know they marched for an hour or so. But they had initially thought that there would have been like thousands of protesters in Cleveland. That wasn't the case. There were hundreds, but not thousands.
In the past cycle, we've seen the Democrats actually respond to Black Lives Matter protesters, and they've pushed a policy, they've pushed a platform that has actually responded to their demands. So I think it's a pressure point.
So you think they will be here in a much more significant way this week?
Yes, I do.
And what's the message? What do they want to get out of it?
Well, of course, there's an anti-police brutality element, and that's definitely much stronger after the deaths of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile. But I think there's a much broader platform among activists I've spoken to, you know, environmentalism stuff, also economic items and action items like that. So I think what you'll see at the convention is a much expanded, a view of black politics and black activism.
Does Black Lives Matter have expanded expectations of the Democratic Party? That's why they're here? Do they consider the RNC a lost cause?
I think so. You have an event with the Mothers of the Movement. I think it entails a special responsibility on the behalf of the Democrats when they actually put the movement on center stage. That means they have a very special responsibility to actually go with some policy demands.
Doesn't that put Hillary Clinton in a riskier position, a position to fail facing off against them?
Well,
almost like giving Donald Trump a freebie.
Well, I think it puts her in a position to fail, but only because she's also in a position to actually implement things. So I think when you have a candidate who is so linked with the crime bill, who's linked with the Democratic old guard that has very draconian criminal justice policies, now she's in a position to change that. And I think that's more important than me fact that she's in a position to fail.
Van, thanks for joining me this morning. Van Newkirk joining me, talking Black Lives Matter here at the DNC.
All right, so yeah, obviously the Black Lives Matter movement is going to be much better received at the DNC than it was at the RNC, and the protesters obviously are going to be a lot closer to the DNC arena than they were in Cleveland.